All right, welcome on in, Lions fans, CFL fans. This is episode 3 of the BC Lions Den podcast, season 8. I'm your host, Brian Walrich, and alongside co-host Cole McGarvey, and we are happy to have you join us this evening. What a great show we have for you tonight, this week, as it's been a busy week for the Lions, a busy week for the CFL, and in a few minutes, we're going to be joined by none other than QB1 for your BC Lions, Nathan Rourke. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please head over to our YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button on Facebook and X. Hit that follow button so you can help us grow the show. Let's check in with Cole now. Cole will get into it in detail a bit later, but it's been a busy week for the Lions and the CFL. What are your thoughts on what's transpired since our last show?
Well, Brian, thanks for having me in once again. It sure has started to get busy now, as you mentioned, in the CFL. This is kind of, I feel like, the first exciting point of the offseason when you finally start to get that, man, the CFL offseason is here. You start to get that CFL tampering window that starts to open, although it is only agreeing to terms. None of this is official to the 10th. That excitement starts to kick in, right? You start to get an idea of what your team might look like next year. Maybe if you're, say, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Edmonton, you're starting to bring in some of these new faces, even if you're like someone like BC, right? Where I know there's some Lions fans that are disappointed. We'll talk about it maybe after Nathan joins us, but I wouldn't be as disappointed, right? I feel like they did a lot of their shopping pre-tampering window opening, right? And I know there were some bigger pieces to get done in-house opposed to out-of-house in some of those free agents that were available to all the teams, and still stuff to get done, right? I know I believe there's a tweet going around that there's still so many free agents that are out there, and there's going to be guys that are going to come into camps and earn jobs around the CFL. So been an exciting time. Unfortunately, after I feel like kind of CFL free agency comes and goes, it starts to get in that lull of the offseason where you're like, darn, now there's really nothing to kind of to talk about and kind of get excited about. So it's been a super exciting time when you're refreshing Twitter. What was it was it Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday? When I'm at work, I'm trying to take as many hope my boss isn't listening, but take as many bathroom breaks as I can. I'm refreshing. Hey, what are the Lions doing? What are, as I mentioned, Winnipeg, Ottawa doing? Even Edmonton a little bit. I know there were some people like yourself, even, right? The Ed Hervey tampering window, as it's been dubbed. They were busy and getting after it. So I'm really looking forward to it, Brian. And I know we'll talk maybe a little bit about it before Nathan does join us, but we don't want to keep him waiting too long. But I'll send it back to you. What were your thoughts with kind of the tampering window opening up?
Like you said, the Lions did a lot of their work before that window opened up, signing a lot of their own guys, signing guys that other teams had released. Was a little disappointed. Of course, you lose Jarrell Broxton. That's a huge loss for the offensive line. But it sounds like they did everything they could to keep him, and it just wasn't in the cards. One of the extensions that we got was the extension of Nathan Rourke, which was probably the best news of last week or the last little while here until 2028. So, I mean, that's a big signing for the team, not only for on the field, but off the field. I mean, Nathan is a guy that is going to be marketed around this league, around Vancouver. His value speaks for itself for the Lions. So obviously, you got to get some championships in there to kind of cement your legacy and stuff like that. But I think, Nathan's fully capable of that. And I think the Lions are, we've talked about it in the past. I think they're on the upswing, and I think they're going to be contending for a few years here. So, I mean, just getting that extension done was huge. You lose a guy like Eberhardt, tough, great guy, great player, clutch catches last year, really came into his own. But at the same time, he's an American receiver, and they've got a ton of them coming into camp. They got, Eberhardt was one of these guys that showed up at a training camp one year and made the team and made a name for himself. So we'll try and find another one. That's what it is. The biggest thing to me was not getting a backup quarterback, and I know they circled back to Chase Bryce, and I think that's probably a move they had to make, just because he knows the offense. He's been with Buck. It'll be his second season with Buck and with Nathan. So, I think that it was disappointing not to get a guy or two. They did make an offer to. Why is his name escaping me right now?
Trey?
Demarius Houston.
Oh, yeah.
And ended up withdrawing it for some reason. We don't know why, but maybe he came back. Maybe he started shopping the offer around. I don't know. But I think that move directly resulted in bringing TJ Lee back. But we'll talk about all this stuff a little bit later.
Yep.
We do have some comments just before we're still waiting for Nathan to join us. So um, Nathan joins the program. I'm curious what he thinks about the best throw of his career was. Okay, we'll throw that at him. Broxton was a huge loss. I have a hard time understanding why they couldn't find the dollars. From what I've been told by some pretty reliable sources, they did make him a very good offer, and he wanted to be the highest paid U.S. offensive lineman in the CFL, and the Lions just couldn't go there. They made him a very competitive offer, but the numbers he was looking for just weren't there and just weren't affordable by the Lions. It's a big loss, but Dejon Allen, if he stays healthy, Schluger had a great year last year. They're talking about Woodruff playing some snaps at tackle, maybe. So the Lions have some pieces in house. I mean, Broxton is a huge loss. He was, the highest rated offensive lineman last year, but they're going to have to find some solution.
Yeah, no matter how there's no cookie cut in that one for sure. Well, and we'll talk. I'll give a little bit more of my thoughts as well, as I mentioned, after Nathan does join us. But I know you were excited yesterday, Brian. I believe you actually got a hold of your touchdown Kelowna tickets. So maybe talk a little bit about that and what we can expect heading up there.
Yeah, season ticket holders got a chance to buy their touchdown Kelowna tickets yesterday. I was able to snag a couple for each game. Don't know if I'm going to stay up there for the full week like I was planning to. I do have a hotel book, but it is expensive, man. It's a long weekend in Kelowna in the summer, and man, hotels are expensive. Airbnbs are expensive. So we're kind of rethinking how we're going to manage that. We might drive up for the first game, stay one night, and then come home after that, and then head up again midweek maybe, but still to be determined. But the process was pretty smooth. I was able to pick up some tickets for some some Elks friends. I still can't get that Eskimo thing out of my head. I was able to pick up some tickets for some Elks friends, so they'll be coming to the second game. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be not as big as a Grey Cup, but I think there'll be fans from other teams around, and there'll be some good events going on throughout Kelowna that week. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well. I know having a little bit of experience going to Touchdown Pacific last year was super cool. As you mentioned, kind of like that little bit of a smaller Grey Cup festival feel to it, where everybody from, all 9 teams, even all 10 teams, I should say, with the Schooners usually showing up and kind of having a little bit of merchandise there. I'm looking forward to it up in Kelowna. I will not be making it for both. Like yourself, I'll probably turn into like a weekend trip for myself and my lovely girlfriend. We'll probably go up on whether it's Thursday night or Friday, and then enjoy a Saturday, Sunday up in Kelowna and try to head back to the island for Monday. I would love to stay up there. As you mentioned, though, it just probably doesn't work out financially to stay up in Kelowna for what would it be, I guess, 9-10 days time.
Yeah,
especially when you kind of consider preseason game down in Victoria will kind of add some expenses. We'll be staying in an Airbnb, as we just talked pre-show. Food and eating out and having to take care of yourself is expensive as well. So kind of having to pre-plan out these trips, I would imagine we'll make it up for one, and that'll be good enough. It'll definitely be a bummer when I have to make the drive back, and few people are staying up there, but I'm really looking forward to it. As I mentioned before, having some ties playing in the Apple Bowl before. I'm really curious to see how they transform that into, I believe, what they're hoping for, maybe 20K, but probably more likely around 18,000, I would think.
Yeah, I've heard 17,000. When I was looking at the seating map yesterday, I don't think it's going to be 20K. There is a fairly large premium section where I think it's more like a beer garden kind of thing, or because there were no seats that you could buy in that section. So we ended up buying section where there's actual bleachers and stuff like that. So I don't know how many people they can fit in that premium area. And there's also like a clubhouse area that they're setting up. So I think when it's all said and done, maybe 18,000, which is pretty big for that venue. I don't know what the parking is like around there.
Buckle up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like transit, Uber time, or whatever.
Get there early is what I'd say.
Yeah, get there early for sure. One thing I just want to touch on while we're still waiting for Nathan here. This Whitecaps thing, BC Place.
Yeah. With Pavco.
Now, Pavco has made the Whitecaps an offer that they will give them all profits from their games this year. Jay Janauer of Global has tweeted out that the deal stands for the Lions as well, which is great news if it's true. I mean, if the Lions can get some concession money out of their games, that helps Mr. Doman out quite a bit. Lions, of course, only play 9 games. It's only going to be 7 this year in BC plays. But
well, it'll be 6, right? Because they don't have a preseason game in BC place either.
Right.
Even less.
No, there's 9 home games, right? Generally.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I see.
Yeah, 7 games. So, but yeah, I mean, I hope that's the case, and I hope the Lions are watching that very closely, and it helps out their bottom line, because Amar Doman looks, or certainly deserves, to make a little bit more money off of that.
Yeah, most definitely. I know it's been a huge talking point for the last few months for the Whitecaps. Even for the last season, I know it's been kind of an ongoing debate, especially with shows like D&D kind of covering it. And as you mentioned, Jay Jana are doing a good job of tweeting some stuff out during the case. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I know there's a lot of Whitecaps fans, Blake included, that are really hoping that they do stay. But, there's I know conversations going on that maybe that, they do have to move. And it would be incredibly unfortunate considering how much success they had this past season.
The thing is, in like today's environment, it's real tough to get any money out of a government to pay for a stadium. I think that's kind of what they're holding out for. I just don't see it happening. I don't see how a government can fund a stadium these days. So they're going to have to get that corporate sponsorships and partners, a new owner to chime in. And personally, I've always thought, but I feel like the Lions do like BC Place. I think they like the flexibility it gives them, and they can have the bigger crowds. They can fill the lower bowl. And I think it's a fine stadium for football. I think there's no bad sight lines in that stadium. It's modern. It's getting more modern after the World Cup. So I think in a perfect world, you would build a stadium for the Lions and the Whitecaps, about 30,000, with some tailgating options around it. A nice entertainment district or whatever. But I just don't think that's going to be in the cards. Bob wants to know, what are your thoughts on the QB depth? Will BC go in with Bryce as QB2 and bring back a QB3 development prospect? I think that's the plan right now, Bob. They circled back to Bryce pretty quick. I think they want somebody who knows the Buck Pierce offense. And certainly he should know that by now. He hasn't had a lot of reps, but I think you need somebody with some experience in the system if you're going to have a backup quarterback. Or another quarterback with CFL experience. So, yeah, that depth is a little concerning. That's why I was kind of hoping they would pick up Crum or pick up Ford, or who's the other guy that was out there? I can't remember. But pick up one of those guys anyway to back up Nathan Rourke with some experience. You do need 2 quarterbacks in this league, and knock on wood, hopefully Nathan stays healthy this year.
Heck, sometimes you even need 3. You need a good short yardage guy as well. I mean, we saw in the past, right, with as much as Nathan is a weapon in that short yardage, package, weird stuff happens. We saw it a few years ago, I believe, in the NFL. Who was it that kind of, to end the game situation? I believe it was it's as simple as just a quarterback sneak to try to end the game out. And he ended up hurting his knee. So weird stuff happens. You would definitely not like Nathan to be in that situation. Obviously, if he is quite the weapon, not only from, short yardage, from a long ways out. That being said, we definitely like to find somebody that's able to come in here, whether it is a developmental option that can also fulfill that role of short yardage guy, because we kind of seen with Chase Bryce, he did get a little bit of opportunity and it kind of got revoked pretty quickly. So I'd imagine they hey, let's just focus on the backup quarterback competition. Let's maybe try to focus on bringing in another guy that can handle that responsibility. It'd be interesting for me personally. I do agree with you in terms of wanting to have a backup quarterback that has some familiarity with the system, as well as a CFL veteran, would be more ideal. I would say, though, I think keep an eye on maybe some of the free agent veteran market in terms of quarterback as well. I think maybe we could see a new face in the quarterback room this spring.
All right. Well, we do have Nathan Rourke with us right now, so let's get to it. Nathan Rourke, most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League, most outstanding Canadian in the Football League. Last year.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you there, Brian.
Oh, okay.
There we go. We're good.
Okay,
We're good.
Perfect. Nathan, first of all, congratulations on a great season last year. I mean, both personally and as a team. I know you guys came up a little bit short of your end goal, but I think the team made some great strides last year. What were you proud of last year, and what strides does the team need to take this year to get to that end goal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of a lot of things. I think we didn't start the way that we wanted to. I think we're still trying to get the grasp of Buck's offense and trying to, them learning us and us learning the coaching staff and the playbook and all that kind of stuff. And I'm expecting us to just kind of pick up where we left off, kind of thing. That's our expectation, knowing that we're going to year 2 of the playbook and all that kind of stuff. But I'm certainly proud of the way that we finished the year, with the streak there at the end, and we were able to host a playoff game in a very competitive West Division. That was great. I think at the end of the day, we didn't get it done because, of that unfamiliarity with each other, when unfamiliarity with that moment, those big time moments. I think a lot of us would have loved to have that back. So I think being in those type of situations is just going to help us in the future, and I'm certainly looking forward to getting started.
How important is it to get off to a really good start? Because you got off to a little bit of a slow start last year, got behind the 8 ball in the West Division, then you were kind of chasing for the rest of the season to try and get to the top there.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. We got some really big games coming up, or games to start the year. We're opening up at Sask, right? So just I think set the tone certainly is a part of that. But I think also I think just every game is super important. It adds up in the standings. Every year I expect the West to be tight. There's so many good players in the division, and with free agency showed that. So certainly thinking that. As much as we want to end strong, we certainly want to start fast, and hopefully give us an edge so that teams are chasing us rather than us chasing somebody else.
Hey, Nathan. Well, thank you for jumping on, man. We've been really looking forward to having you on. I'm curious, man, to fast forward to right now, how your off-season training has been going. It's been kind of cool to follow you along on social media and see that, it's super rare, even in like an NFL case, right, where a lot of the guys are in town, where we've seen, yourself, Hatch, McInnes all out throwing the ball, not only with, Rob and stuff like that, but also training with kind of the guys that are in-house. How important has that been for you guys, not only with like guys like McInnes, Hatch, but also we're seeing guys like Kieran out. We're seeing, Katoy when he's in town. We're seeing Couture come out and snap for you guys as well. We've seen Pearson from time to time. So how important is that to you guys, and kind of how has your off-season training been so far?
Yeah, it's been great so far. I mean, I think, it's, in a lot of ways, just at this point in my career, it's just been great to be here and be local, and with these guys, with Hatch living here and Justin living here, like Couture living here. Those are, 3 guys that the 4 of us kind of have to be really on the same page, center and receiver, right? So that's just been fantastic. We've got a really good group, and it seems to be growing every single day, which is awesome. The camaraderie is great. The best teams that I've been a part of since I've been with the Lions have just had really stellar off-season groups where guys want to be around each other in the off-season, and when you work hard and you're motivating each other in the weight room and on the field, it's just a real college atmosphere, and that's really special, and certainly try not to take it for granted.
You post a lot on Instagram, and it's a lot about the mechanics stuff, and I know your relationship with Rob Williams and QB motion. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's improved yourself as a quarterback? Like, a lot of it's very mechanical stuff.
Yeah, we certainly get pretty technical. I started working with Rob in the winter of 2021 when I moved out here, and it's just completely changed the way that I throw the football, and really my career trajectory kind of took off as a passer. I felt that I was more inclined to being a running quarterback. I did that a lot in college, and certainly a lot of things that come more naturally to me than maybe other people in that sense. But the throwing aspect of it, just to become a professional, like there's a bit of a learning curve for me there. And Rob working with him gave me a tremendous amount of confidence, and knowing that I could, put the ball wherever I wanted to, and be able to do it, with more velocity, more power. That just was really something that, through working with him, that just kind of, I thought, catapulted my career forward and gave me a chance in the NFL, and ultimately has allowed me to have a lot of success in the CFL as well. So I'm very, very grateful for him and our relationship. We're working together. This is our fifth season together, and it's been great to have the chance to work with him.
When speaking about your off-season training, Nathan, I know you'll kind of train with mostly your teammates, but I know we've seen in the past that you will train with your brother as well. With Rob, he'll come up here from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Two-part question, I guess. At what point will you guys train? I know his season just ended, and I'm sure he's still kind of winding down from that season. But at what point will you guys maybe train together? And how cool has it been? As I know, a big brother, I'm sure he's kind of used to maybe cheering you on. This year, you've been able to kind of really be a fan of him in the NFL. I know, unfortunately, due to his injury back in college, he wasn't able to kind of maybe have the rookie year that he wanted. But when are you guys maybe planning on training this summer, or the spring, excuse me, I should say? And kind of how cool has it been for you to watch him?
Yeah, it's been super cool. Obviously with the things that he's doing in the States, with the success he had at Indiana, which was really cool, and then obviously being a part of that kind of ascension of that program and Crit Signetti, I think it's been cool to kind of have that to be able to see that part of college football and to see his success has been great, and being able to chance to see him. I mean, we're on the West Coast, so we're both on the West Coast, so it seems like he's a lot closer now, which is great, and I'm just it's been cool. We're hoping that he has a chance to come up. He's very, very busy. His home base is over in Cincinnati with my sister-in-law and her family, and so they've got a much shorter off season than we do. And so if it all works out, I'm sure that they'll be making a stop up here, but we're not quite sure yet.
Nathan, you talked about getting a quick start. The Lions are going to face a challenge this year with the World Cup. They're going to be away from BC Place for the first 4 games of the season, I believe. 6 if you include the preseason games. What challenges do you see there? Do you see that as an opportunity to maybe bond as a team, being out on the road, eating together, living together, kind of, taking that opportunity and turning it into a positive?
Yeah, it does definitely bring some challenges, but I think that the way that we're looking at it as an organization is a unique opportunity to be able to play in front of fans in Kelowna and expand our reach as an organization. We are, after all, we're the BC Lions, not the Vancouver Lions, and so we get to be able to play in front of people who might not have the chance to on a regular basis, which is really, really exciting. And I think that the organization and Mr. Doman and Dwayne and the rest of the people who are working really, really hard to get that event sorted, they've done a fantastic job, and it is going to be a little bit difficult, probably for us. Maybe it might feel like an away game, but in Touchdown Pacific from 2024, we did. So it'll be something similar, I think, just a little bit longer, and they did a fantastic job there, and we really felt by the end of the week that it was a home game, and then the environment was unbelievable. So that's kind of set the bar pretty high for us, and so we're expecting something similar and hopefully the same result as well. So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting, certainly some challenges, but we're ready for it.
I was curious, Nathan, during the off season, if you don't mind, maybe just taking us into kind of like your process of how you're watching film during this time. Obviously off season, so you're not really having any opponents to look at, but I imagine you're kind of doing a self scout and looking at yourself, and then you're kind of team scouting yourself, and whether that's with, Buck or with teammates or whatnot, just maybe taking us into your process of how you're kind of, self scouting and team scouting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, we start the season by doing a whole bunch of self-scout, looking at, what we did well and what we need to improve on. What are the areas, sorting it in different ways, formationally, by scheme, by concept, by formation, all those different type of things, trying to figure out ways to get better, running data or just watching the film. I know that for me, in watching film early was important to be able to set some goals and set some priorities for the off season. And when I'm working with Rob, when I'm working with Buck, just trying to get on the same page so that when I'm on the field, I'm working on things to be able to get better for the off season. And whether that's footwork or if it's certain concepts, whatever it might be, some things that are going to stick out on film. So I usually go about it that way. And then going into trying to get ahead of the season with some of our prep on opponents. That was something we'll get into as well. And so I think it's the off season is mostly for self scout, but you also want to do that. And then if you some of the coaches will get into watching some other teams as well, like offensively, either from the NFL or the CFL, just to try to see if how to expand and how to get better and maybe some things to add. So, yeah, great question. It's a lot of different things, but it's mainly trying to figure out ways to get better.
Brian, can I just sneak in one more? Sorry, Nathan. If
go
you
ahead.
can maybe just talk about kind of like the differences from watching film, like when you guys are kind of, I know I thought I heard a comment of like when you're watching, defenses, maybe fans think you're kind of singling in on players, but I thought I heard a comment of like you really focusing on defensive coordinators and kind of what they really do from a teaching standpoint, because they're kind of teaching the techniques down to their players and they're fulfilling those roles. So can you kind of walk us through that fine line as well?
Yeah, another really good question. I don't necessarily focus as much on personnel as much as people might think. To me, I try to learn what the defensive coordinator, like who they are as a coordinator, how they call games, what their tendencies are, what's their identity, how they teach things. Ultimately, players are going to go be in and out. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be changes in the lineup. And there are certainly going to be intricacies in terms of how it looks, how a certain coverage looks, how a blitz looks, what are some tells on those things. But ultimately, they're going to be fitting within that scheme. And so when I watch a game, especially at the beginning and the end of the week, I want to be able to see how the game flows, what certain situations we might be expecting certain things based on the coordinator. And I really try to build a profile and add to a profile if it's a recurring coordinator, to try to figure out, what the game's going to look like. And, part of the personnel, learning the personnel is a part of that. But to me, it starts with trying to figure out who the DC is and going from there.
Got a question from Bob Medill here. How much input do you have in play calling and game planning for each game?
Yeah, I think that a big part of the plan is Buck and I trying to figure out if we see things the same way, and so when the plays go in, it's at the end of the week we're all looking at the call sheet, and Buck is building the call sheet based off of things that he likes. He's taking input for what I like, and then the rest of the quarterbacks and coaches have their input as well. And so he's calling it in a certain way based, the game might change. They come out in a coverage that we're not expecting. They're doing some different things that would change the order, but usually the order, the game plan itself and what of our favorites are and what's not, if there's something I'm not really comfortable with, or he didn't like the way that it looked in practice or something like that, that play will be out. But our favorites are going to be on top of the top of the call sheet and things that we want to call early. And that's how that process ends up happening. It's very collaborative, but it's one of Buck's strengths, I think, as a quarterback, is like just knowing the fact that like he played the position, he was in those rooms, he knows what it is. And so he really trusts the players and he wants that situation to be collaborative. And so he's very open to that kind of stuff. I trust him though very much in his expertise as a coordinator. So I think there's a lot of things that I like to, I certainly give my input and I want to make sure that he's calling the stuff, but I trust him a lot. So a short answer, Bob, it's a collaborative process. And I would say that, and that also varies week to week, I would say as well.
Is your comfort level a lot better this year with Buck? Like going into season 2, I mean, obviously you guys have been together for a full year now. You kind of know each other's likes and dislikes and better understanding of the offense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, I think throughout the season, you get to learn the person as well. Right. So, I mean, he came on, I think in like really late, I felt like in the process last year. And I think a lot of the off season for him was trying to figure out who he wanted to be as a head coach, being the first time he was in the role. And so the amount of time that we spent together was, really very surface level. And so by the time we got to camp, we were we were already running, everything was already happening. And so this off season has been really great because the two of us, I feel like, have obviously been through a season where we experienced the highs and the lows and have a good understanding of how things are going to go. But also we felt like things have slowed down a little bit for both of us and we can kind of talk about things a little bit more. And obviously knowing him as a person as well has been great, just to kind of figure out, how to talk to him and how we get along and all that kind of stuff, which is all just very, very important. And I'm very appreciative and very lucky as a quarterback to have an offensive-minded head coach and one of the best coordinators in the league.
Nathan, knowing your personality, I know how much you don't like to always talk about yourself. So I'm curious if you don't mind maybe talking about a few of your teammates because of how much not only they're there for you, but I feel like they're just two of the most elite players in the CFL right now. And that being McInnes and Hatch, we already talked about how much you guys are able to train those two guys being in town, but just how much of a connection you're able to have with those two guys and what they're able to do for you in terms of kind of being able to be on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, two of the best guys in the league, right? They've just done an incredible job. I've just been so impressed with their evolution as players. Hatch, I came in at the same time in 2021, and he just continues to get better every single year, which is just so impressive. And I think I was just so happy for him this year when he was able to get the extension he deserved, and obviously it makes my job a lot easier when he's out there. He's one of the smartest players I've ever been around, and just knows football so well, and just been very impressed by both of their leadership and the way that they've been able to drive the room as well. And Justin and I, last year I started playing with him in 24. Last year I felt like I really knew him a lot better, and not only him off the field, but also just his body language and how to throw it to him. He's such a big guy, so physically gifted, and that you kind of have to remember that he's going to be able to use his body and go and get balls that just other people can't. And so getting used to having a weapon like that took me a little bit of time, admittedly, but I felt really good about it this past year. And we just to be able to have the more weapons as possible. I know Hatch was the leading receiver in the league in terms of targets and yardage, but we want to be able to make sure that we can spread the ball around and get it to as many people as possible. So when we have two elite players like that, which I think we have more than that, but those two specifically, I think it just makes us better. And so it's been awesome for me to be able to, it's been a dream really, just to be able to train with them every single day. And they're just going to keep getting better the harder they work, and I'm here for it.
Did lose a couple of your weapons in Broxton and Eberhardt, but you did get James Butler back. I'm assuming you're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very excited to get JB back. I think he is one of the most, if not the most complete back in the game right now, and really shouldered a bunch of the load on his own last year. But in terms of what we want to do, in terms of, obviously he can run the ball and he can make a guy miss in space, but he's incredibly tough, and also very, very smart. We ask him to do a ton in protection and a ton in the pass game, and he's just able to do all of it. And so I think he's extremely valuable, and I was just elated when we were going to bring him back. I think that's a huge get for us, and I'm sure I'm most comfortable with him and back there with me, and excited for another year of him, and hoping. I think we're going to have a really good backfield this year with obviously him and Xander. That just should be a good 1-2 punch, and I'm excited for that.
All right, last one from you, maybe, Brian.
Sure.
I'm curious, Nathan, and I feel like it's almost started with you. And I know the humble guy that you are. You maybe don't think that, but I really feel like the Canadian talent in the last 5-6 years has really skyrocketed. When you look at even our team in BC, right? When you look at Betts on the other side of the ball, you look at yourself. You also look at Brady Oliveira over in Winnipeg, right? Two of the last guys to win MOP, both Canadians. We also look at McInnes leading the league in CFL and in receiving, where guys are coming. Adrian Green tied for the league in interceptions, where guys are not only kind of being, where it was stereotyped that, a Canadian would come in and maybe play tackle or maybe come in and play into the field on defense, right? Where now guys are coming in and playing these premium positions. How cool has that been for you to kind of been at the forefront and one of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I've always appreciated the fact that the CFL has been committed to keeping Canadians in the league, and I'm always going to cheer for Canadians. I mean, obviously, we play against them, and we play a lot of good ones, but it's always fun to see them succeed, and it's always fun to see them get recognized, and to continue to go against maybe the grain. is fun. It's fun for me. It's very rewarding to be able to see the game grow in a number of different ways. I think back when I was in college, only in 17, 18, 19, when we were doing the Cornish Trophy, the John Cornish Trophy for recognizing the best NCAA player. My first year, there was just not a lot of nominees, and it just every single year, even when I was still in school, like it would just get more. There'd be more, harder and harder job for them, and just more and more people to choose from. And now it's the names that you hear are just like it's incredible, and it's a huge honor to be a part of that. And I'm hoping it continues to go that way. I hope the ratio continues to stay the way that it is, that Canadians continue to have success in the NFL, and that our league continues to have the narrative of showcasing the best Canadian talent, and continuing to get closer to, what good quality football, which I believe that it is, and pushing that narrative as well.
Last one for me, Nathan. Canadians, while we're on the topic, of course, the Olympics are coming up. Do you have any interest in playing for Canada in that flag football Olympic tournament? I know the commissioner was at the winter meeting saying that the league is going to kind of keep going through those Olympic games. So the Lions and their fans would be without Nathan Rourke for a couple of games, which is not a great prospect for us. But do you have any interest in representing Canada in those Olympic games?
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously a lot of things. There's a lot of nuance because I've been around flag football. I played it when I was young, but this version of it isn't a one-to-one change, or it's not a one-to-one to the version we play, right, with pads. So there's going to be some nuance. There's going to have to be some me getting used to the game and all that kind of stuff, but for me, I think that representing Canada is something that I was incredibly proud to do when I was in college and when I was down south in the NFL. Something that I'm proud to do right now as a Canadian quarterback, and to be able to represent Canada at the Olympics would be an incredible honor. I think about the prospects of potentially playing with Curtis in the Olympics would be kind of the coolest thing ever. And so it's something that there's obviously more information that we have to learn about, the cooperation between the CFL and Football Canada with that. But I would certainly be interested and would love to see it work out.
As long as you can clone yourself before you go, we'll be good.
I was going to say, Nathan, if you're looking for a tune-up game, our men's league team would be very welcome to having you out.
Might need to.
Just kidding, though. But wishing you the best of luck, buddy, and appreciate you for coming on. It was awesome to have you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was awesome.
All right. Nathan Rourke, quarterback for your BC Lions. What a great interview. Very thoughtful answers, very honest and humble. I shocked at the end where he said, yeah, I want to play for Team Canada.
Me as well.
I had heard that he didn't really have an interest in doing that, but apparently not.
Me as well. So I actually heard opposite. I did know he had an interest, but I thought once the commissioner said that, hey, I'm giving them permission to go, but we're not going to shut down the season kind of at your own risk, I thought that would kind of, maybe put that to bed. But maybe some things will maybe be able to work out, whether it's, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how you kind of work around that without missing your franchise quarterback. And I think that's kind of something that the Lions would not want to have. And I'm sure Nathan, the competitor that he is, doesn't want to have, but leaving that door open is something that's interesting. You never know what could happen, 2 seasons technically from now. So maybe it's, hopefully maybe the commissioner changes. Maybe there is a league-wide shutdown for maybe say a month or whatever during the Olympics where they could go. I doubt that happens. But we are still a little bit of ways away. Maybe hearing something like that where Nathan Rourke does want to represent, especially too, the as you mentioned about the possibility of playing with his brother, Curtis Rourke, I believe. So it's 5-on-5 in the Olympics, right? 10 guys, technically 5 on offense, 5 on defense. You can also have 2 subs. When kind of messing around, I'm doing a little bit of messing around for the Olympics of putting together like a projected roster. The Brown brothers could potentially be on there. I didn't even think about the possibility of Curtis and Nathan being on the same team together would be super cool, and I would imagine be an opportunity that both of them don't want to pass up on. The benefit for the NFL guys is that they're not in the middle of their season during then, so I would imagine they're going to have a little bit more of a green light compared to the CFL. But as I said, who knows what will happen come 2 years from now.
I wonder how many games they'll actually miss if they do carry through the season.
Well, so there is, I believe from what I heard, there's six flag football teams that will be going. So say that you play everybody, or say that you play 3 games in the round robin, and then you go further.
Maybe the Olympics is what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would think.
So, yeah, it wouldn't be that bad, but maybe the Lions could have a bye. Hopefully, give us a bye.
See, or maybe you could work out something, right? Where maybe would you give the Lions like a double bye or something like that? Or
I mean, when you realistically look at it, I mean, the Lions are probably the only team, unless Trey Ford ends up there somewhere, that are going to have a Canadian quarterback on that team.
Yeah, I think the only other possible Canadian, in my opinion, would be Terrell Ford as well, in terms of an athlete guy. But as you said, I just think there's kind of the quality of receivers and defensive backs are going to push a lot of those guys that are hopeful CFL guys to go. Maybe like a McInnes, like the Philpotts. I just think you look at down south and you look at, especially with some of those bigger tight end guys that I think are going to nab some of those spots, some of those Theo Johnsons. I would imagine Josh Palmer will get a look. A few other receivers down there. As I said, with Chase Brown, I think he'll be one of the running backs, Chuba Hubbard. So some of the skill positions down there, they're going to push, say the Philpotts, McInnes is down, where Nathan's top name, top of the list that Paul Napolise wants to pick from. Obviously, if he's not able to, you're going to go down the rung, but it'll be interesting. I'm glad you threw that in, Brian. I wasn't going to throw that in because I kind of figured after the commissioner kind of said, hey, we're going to give them permission to go, but we're not. The show goes on. So who knows? Who knows?
Not only did he say yes, he kind of lit up at the opportunity to do it. He wants to go. So very interesting. Sorry we didn't get more fan questions in, but it was basically the fact that none of you were asking. we have 103 people in here. We've got 95 people watching on Twitter, and only Bob Medill came in with a question. So unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But I think we had a good time with Nathan. But let's get into some other stuff now. Actually, Blake, I'm sorry I didn't get to your question about his best throw.
Brian, and shout out not only to you for setting that up, obviously shout out to Bake
for
setting that up as well. Super greatly appreciated. And this is only kind of the beginning for Brian and I. Hopefully we're going to be able to have more guests on throughout the offseason and then only in the season as well. So we're looking forward to it. We had to start it out. You can't bury the lead in terms of guests. So we had to go to the top.
Well, we wanted to make sure we try to get Nathan on during the off season because I don't want to bother him during the season. He's got a lot going on. He's, doing all the marketing stuff. He's, I just, football season is football season. And I kind of wanted to leave him alone during the season. So it's great that he came on, and thanks to Matt Baker for making that happen. We've been away for 2 years. So kind of rebuilding our trust and all the rest of it with the media and all these other places that we can get guests from. So it was great.
And it seemed like Nathan loved to do that too. A couple of smiles. He enjoyed the answers. I know from time to time the media, especially in his position too, I don't honestly blame him when he has to do it all the time. So it was awesome.
All right, let's get into some of the things that have been going on in the last week now. The Lions have been busy, although they didn't, we'll talk about the communication window here first. Obviously the Lions didn't bag anybody in that communication window. And I think we need to call it the Ed Hervey window before the communication window now, because he signed a guy like 20 minutes into it. So he's obviously created his own window again. But Ed Hervey was going nuts. The Bombers were going nuts. The Riders lost some guys.
Ottawa
added a bunch of guys. So it was quite a day for the communication windows. We'll focus on the Lions, and obviously the biggest loss, Jarrell Broxton. Big loss for the Lions. You kind of look at what they have in house, and now you're looking at guys like DeJon Allen, Schluger, Woodruff. Who's going to fill that left tackle spot? And you got options with Schluger and Woodruff if you want to keep Allen on the right side, maybe. I don't know if Allen has played anything on the left tackle side, but if he's comfortable on the right, maybe you just keep him there and see what one of those other two guys can do. They do have some option in house, but to me, the biggest thing that has to happen is Dejan Allen needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, most definitely. I believe, what was it, only 4 regular season games played last season, which is nowhere near what you want him to be next year. Has to be completely the opposite. I would imagine, 16, 17 games if he can. Long 18-game season, you maybe expect him to be banged up for 1 or 2. Nature of the business. But, I mean, yeah, Brian, I've been excited to get into this one. I shared a little bit of my thoughts on Twitter. And no matter which way you slice it, losing Jarrell Broxton is a tough pill to swallow for the BC Lions. Positively, negatively, wherever you want to go, right? And I think maybe positively where you go first is kind of thank Broxton for his time in a BC Lions uniform, and you just kind of simply chalk it up to, he wanted to go after what he deserved, what he felt he deserved, and, never really getting a payday in the CFL, kind of came into the CFL through the BC Lions on a cheap deal. Kind of, came back, I believe it was 2 years ago, signed another extension on another kind of similar, cheaper, I shouldn't say a cheap deal, but didn't necessarily break the bank. I think at that point, the narrative around Broxton was a lot more quieter, opposed to, you have guys like JC Abbott, Farhan Lalji, top tier media guys that are kind of on the table speaking for Broxton in terms of being up for some of these national awards, most outstanding offensive lineman, stuff like that, where now his price tag has went up most definitely. And especially with sacks given up in the last few years, right? And kind of his numbers with pressures, I believe it was 15 pressures given up last season. So it hurts. The fact that it comes down to money is kind of, I don't know if I want to say justified is necessarily the right word for the player, but he definitely deserves to get paid for what he's done on the field right now. Whether he lives up to that price tag with Winnipeg maybe is a benefit for BC, where maybe you don't load up that much, you don't back up the Brinks truck, so to say. And then, unfortunately, injuries happen, whether it's Broxton's fault or not, where you have that big price tag and then the guy's not playing for you. I think where, you sign a guy like Dejan Allen, the price tag maybe isn't necessarily as much. It's kind of more of a, hey, you got to come in and kind of prove to us that you're going to stay healthy, and we'll maybe reward you down the road. Now I will say, I will talk a little bit negatively, unfortunately, folks, losing him to a division rival, losing him to the Winnipeg flipping Blue Bombers of all teams is an absolute gut punch. I can't sugarcoat that one at all, especially because, yes, Saskatchewan was the team that we couldn't get past this past year. Winnipeg's been the team that's standing in our way. And unfortunately, I feel like the way to a Grey Cup, the way to winning in the playoffs, winning in the trenches is so key. And unfortunately, whether it's determined yet, whether it's going to be a strength or maybe we could at least get to the same floor, we strengthened Winnipeg if Broxton's able to stay healthy up front, where that was a little bit, we started to see a little bit of, the chinks in the armor, if you will, with some of those offensive linemen starting to get older, where Stanley's pushing 40, I believe.
It's 41, I think.
Yeah. So we just gave them a guy now that can kind of, not necessarily in his prime, I believe 32 at Broxton, but it's a tough one. But if I do for a second, Brian, I don't want to be too long-winded here, but how they are able to mitigate losing a guy like Jarrell Broxton, as you just said, guys in-house, I would imagine the keys are going to kind of be given to a guy like Chris Schlugger to maybe go out and win that competition. We also talked about a guy like Corey Woodruff, who's in-house, won over that starting guard position, but also has the flexibility to go out and possibly play that left tackle spot. Then you also look at, as you're bringing up here, veteran Isaiah Cage, who has 40 plus starts in the CFL along the offensive line, left tackle, as well as left guard. He did set out all of last season to rehab and I shouldn't say rehab, to recover his injury and get back to 100%. So that could be maybe a blessing in disguise for Lions, where a lot of these teams are down on a guy like Cage, and the Lions, hey, let's take a stab at a guy like this who didn't play at all last season. He does have that veteran experience in the CFL, so maybe he can come in and be a serviceable one-year guy. The other way that I look at it, Brian, is that how they're able to mitigate losing a guy like Jarrell Broxton is play calling and scheme. We just talked about it with Nathan Rourke, right? With a guy like Buck Pierce, who now is going into the second year of his scheme, where, yes, I think a lot of the time it's kind of, I think maybe categorized of like, Buck Pierce likes to go to that, downhill north-south running where he likes to get it. I feel like kind of the stereotypical with, Andrew Harris, Brady Oliveira, but he also loves to attack you going, east and west, side to side, right, where he gets some of those jet motions going, where we're putting the ball into the running back's belly. Nathan Rourke's pulling it out. He's having that free guy coming out of the front side of the formation for an easy pass, where I think Buck Pierce is going to have to do a good job of trying to mitigate that loss of losing your stalwart left tackle. And then Nathan Rourke. I don't think there's a guy that gets the ball out of his hands quicker than Nathan Rourke. Trevor Harris is up there, but the ability to process and get through his reads, Nathan Rourke is second to none in the CFL. I think he's going to be able to get the ball out quick again and hopefully mitigate that loss of a guy like Broxton moving forward. So, as I said, folks, that there's maybe a little bit longer in the positives, but there's no sugarcoat in this one. This is a bummer. This is a big time loss for the BC Lions, but I do believe they have the pieces in house to be able to get to or maintain that same floor.
They also lost American receiver Aiden Eberhardt. He was a fan favorite last year. Really came into his own last year, I thought, after making some strides in his first year, but made some really clutch catches, became a favorite target for Nathan. So that's going to be a loss as well, but I think that's one that's easier to stomach. First of all, he's going to the Ottawa Red Blacks, so we're not going to see him a bunch of times a year. Second of all, he's an American receiver. And the fact of the matter is, we can go through all the Lions signings and see how many receivers they're bringing in. We had one up on the screen here that I'm kind of intrigued about. Marquez Callaway has played in the NFL for a bunch of teams and had some success there. So at the end of the day, American receivers are a lot easier to find than American left tackles that are studs. So I think that, when you're losing an Eberhardt, there's a lot more opportunity to find the next Eberhardt. And I think, with the amount of guys and receivers that the Lions have been bringing into camp for this season, hopefully they can find another one.
Travis Fulgham, Brian. My apologies. It finally came to me randomly. I knew it would, but I feel like kind of maybe, Brian and I were talking about it off camera of, a few years ago, Travis Fulgham was brought in. I believe that was 23, the first year that Vernon was given the keys, where, kind of fall or bounce back NFL guy where, I remember having him on my fantasy team for a few weeks, right? The Fulgham kind of had a little bit of a flash in the pan for a few weeks in the NFL, comes to the CFL and is kind of built up to one of the Lions' bigger offseason additions that season. And unfortunately kind of flopped more so than anything. And I believe he was a one and done guy in the CFL, but I think kind of a similar expectation you can have for a guy like Callaway, who was I wouldn't say a proven talent in the NFL, but has some production in the NFL, a guy that should at least garner that respect coming in the CFL, but has to go earn it on the field. This is not the NFL. This is not college by any means. That this is a different game where, we heard guys like, Sam McGee that, came up here, came to camp and found out at camp that there's 12 guys on the field, finding out these intricacies where it's a different game. It is football at the end of the day, but there is some nuances and some differences that you have to get used to. So I'm hopeful that a guy like Callaway can kind of come up here and maybe grab hold of that fifth receiver spot. I do agree with you. Losing a guy like Eberhardt is unfortunate. I became a pretty big fan of Eberhardt. I did mention to you, Brian, I do have a little bit of kind of a connection with him. Somebody that plays for the Vancouver Island Raiders here in my hometown kind of has a really strong relationship with him. So it was a bummer to see him leave. I think he's only going to continue to get better as a CFL pro. But that being said, as you said, right, fourth wide receivers, when you have, Hatch, McInnes, and Katoy all over 200K, you have a guy like Stanley Berryhill back under contract. It's kind of hard to really fork over a little bit of extra money. And then I would say this to leave this out there. I mentioned, I believe the last time we recorded, Brian, keep an eye on a guy like Dalton Schoen. Not going to be ready for the likelihood till after Labor Day, but say you bring in a guy like Callaway and he maybe has hold of that fifth receiver spot. Dalton Schoen maybe be able to get healthy for, say a stretch run post Labor Day would be ideal for the Vancouver Island Raiders. BC Lions just sold the fact that he has a ton of familiarity with this regime. Buck Pierce being number one, right? And obviously Ryan McMahon a little bit being having ties to Winnipeg as well. Where is he healthy is 100% the biggest question when it comes to Dalton Schoen. If he is, sign me up. If he isn't, I would still consider taking a flyer on Schoen just based off what he's done up here in the CFL.
Probably come a bit cheaper too, 2 ACL tears, so he's not going to get big money. but I'm sure if he's ready to come back, there might be more than one team that would take a flyer on Dalton Schoen. The other thing I was kind of disappointed with in the communication window was the Lions didn't get themselves a quarterback. There was 2 or 3 out there, and I know they were in on Crum and Trey Ford, both signed elsewhere. Crum with Montreal, Trey Ford with Hamilton. It sounded like, listening to Trey Ford, that he just felt like the opportunity was not going to be here with the BC Lions with Nathan Rourke. Here, when you look at Hamilton, Bo Levi Mitchell's winding down his career there, you spend a year under Bo and Milanovic, and then maybe you learn those traits you need to become the next starter in Hamilton, which is going to happen a lot sooner than it would happen for him in BC here. When we talked about this before, I was kind of the same mindset where he would come here and spend some time under Rourke and spend some time under Buck, with the full expectation that eventually he would move on somewhere into a starting role. But I think he just figured like that was going to happen a lot sooner for him by going to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and he's also from that area, so I mean that was a big draw for him as well, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Makes probably a little bit more sense, Bo, as you said, just closer to that 18th green than Nathan Rourke. Hopefully Nathan's still in the front 9 opposed to the back 9 of his career. So one thing I just wanted to mention, Brian, we did talk about it before we had Nathan on, but just I know there was a lot of people that were disappointed, just to reiterate again, of the Lions not really being too much active. But when you look back at all the signings they got done pre-free agency, you mentioned it too, Nathan Rourke, but you also got to include that guys like Betts, McInnes, Hatcher, and Rourke are all big money guys in the CFL now, not just middle of the pack guys, all making I think it was the top 10 hardest monies going into 2026. All 4 of those guys are on that list. So darn near half the list is BC Lions. The cap is what, $8 million. So I mean, there's only so much money to go around. You also look at the deals, Casey Sales and Darnell Sankey coming in, 2 bona fide studs, 2 plug and play starters that are going to come into your defense. Sankey and Sales, probably 2 guys that aren't only impacting on the field as players, but impacting that locker room as leaders as well. So I think on top of bringing guys back like Hatcher, Jonah Tavai, James Butler, Dejon Allen now, giving Nathan Rourke that extension, it's really hard to kind of be too disappointed. And for me anyways, outside of really quarterback, kind of the quarterback market, and then a few other signings as well. But I know, Brian, we did touch on, maybe we could as well, big fan favorites, but TJ Lee and Gary Peters being brought back as well.
Gary Peters we knew about before the window. TJ Lee, I think when they made an offer to Demarius Houston and they withdrew that offer, don't know why. I don't want to speculate why. But they withdrew their offer to Demarius Houston, who had apparently agreed to come to the Lions. I think when that happened, they kind of circled back to some guys, and TJ Lee was one of those guys. And during his 12th season as a Lion, obviously when he came back last year, instant improvement in the secondary. His leadership, his experience, his calming nature as a leader, I think really helped the Lions turn around that defense in the second half of the season, because they were having some issues before he came back. Now, I think you mentioned it on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days. It would be nice. We're fine with him coming back, but you would hope there's going to be some competition in camp, because at the end of the day, Gary Peters isn't getting any younger. And I think we saw some issues with his play last year. I know he had the bad knee, but he may be slowing down a step or two. Again, you look for these guys for leadership, right? But they're not getting any younger. You've got to find the next Robert Carter Jr. You got to find some more guys to bring in to this organization that are going to be the next TJ Lees, the next Gary Peters. So it's great that they're back. I think it was a no-brainer once they kind of struck out in the communication window. I don't know who else is out there that they could really look at in free agency on the 10th, but I don't think I think it's going to be slim pickings on the 10th. I think a lot of teams have signed their own guys. A lot of teams sign guys in this, or have agreed to terms with guys in this free agency window, and those signings will be made official on the 10th. But I mean, there's still time for some guys to change their minds and We've seen it happen before, but I just don't think there's a lot out there in free agency for defensive backs at the moment.
Yeah, I want to preference this by saying, I want to start by saying I am lifelong fans of Gary Peters and TJ Lee. So I don't want people to think
100%.
that I'm coming at them in a negative way, but I just think with what I explained on Twitter, Brian, love both of them and what they've done. I think they should be respected. But as long as there's competition added, because when you look at the secondary, if Gary Peters just gets back to going to the corner, I would imagine whether it's TJ Lee or Ronald Kent, who will probably likely be at least given opportunities to start at half. You look at Robert Carter's position, who is now left open. That would have been Demario Houston's likely spot, playing outside corner. I just think there needs to be competition at least added. I 100% agree in terms of as soon as TJ Lee came back, there was improvement on the field. I also think a little bit more of his impact was felt kind of in terms of the voice in the locker room and more than on the field. Where I mentioned to it on Twitter of like, you know, we just seen the last year of giving young guys like Corey Woodruff opportunities to start. He took it and ran with it. Now he's our starting left guard, possibly left tackle. You gave a guy like Robert Carter Jr. a starting spot over a guy like Jalen Edwards Cooper, CFL veteran. And look what he did with it, turning into NFL opportunities. So is the grass always green on the other side? No, it's not. And taking these swings, taking these gambles could leave you, bare bones. But I think it was at least worth the gamble. GP, I'm very curious to see how much of last year was the knee injury and how much of that kind of lingered on throughout the season and really bothered him. But just at times, man, that was very like we never seen GP getting beat that badly. And it wasn't just once, it was multiple times throughout the season where, like, in the past, a lot of the times, I feel like he's so underrated in terms of his interception numbers usually aren't very big. Quarterbacks just don't throw at Gary Peters because of his coverage, his presence on the field, where quarterbacks were targeting him last year. And it felt like, man, what the heck is, like, I'm not used to this, number one, and kind of felt like, there's the saying too, right? It's a young man's game. At some point, Father Time is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as you think you can do it still, as much as we believe in you, and I still think there is a little bit of game left in there, love to have them in the locker room for their voices. I'm just a little bit concerned of, through an 18-game season, in terms of, not wanting to leave yourself too bare bones, make sure that there's some competition added. And who knows what could happen with Canadians like Beaulieu and Finley. Maybe one of those guys could be in contention to be on the field at one of those halfback spots, or even in the corner as well.
So another guy they had to circle back to was Chase Bryce. Obviously, you didn't get that experienced quarterback. Somebody mentioned to me the other day about McLeod Bethel Thompson. I'm not a real big McLeod Bethel Thompson fan. I don't see him bringing much value to the Lions at this point in his career. And I don't think he fits our scheme either. Like, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not, he's a little on the old side. Again, he's been weighing with the retirement for the last couple of years. Would he be better than Jeremiah Masoli? Probably. But I just don't think he fits the scheme of the Lions. I would much rather circle back to Chase Bryce, hope that he's learned enough in this system the last couple of years that he could be effective if called upon. You're probably going to need your backup quarterback to at least play a quarter, a half, if
probably
you're lucky. Probably a game at some point.
Realistically.
Yeah. Especially if Nathan's blind side isn't protected like it used to be last year. So let's hope that Chase is comfortable in the system now. I think there's still going to be some guys at camp they're going to take a look at. I looked at the roster online, and they don't have any quarterbacks listed, but I'm sure they've signed a few that haven't been added to the roster yet. So,
like I said, pay attention to that American quarterback market. I really feel like that's where Rick Baden's going to maybe try to pull into or tap into, in terms of just the veteran CFL market isn't there. All the guys are gone. Jake Mayer, all those guys kind of got scooped up, rightfully so, and they all went to spots where they could be Taylor Powell, where Taylor Powell could go, kind of be that 1B in Edmonton, or kind of push Cody Fajardo. Jake Mayer goes to Ottawa with Drew Brown not really being, Drew Brown is, I guess, the guy there, but I really feel like he hasn't necessarily shown the ability to kind of like, hey, we're going to go and try to get better here with the guy like Jake Mayer. And we're not going to, hey, we have Drew Brown, so we can't go and try to upgrade our quarterback position, where the Lions have kind of been left, as you said, with Chase Bryce, where it makes sense to circle back to him, but just like I feel like it showed in the preseason where they kind of balanced both quarterbacks. They gave Chase Bryce the opportunity. He never really ran with it. So I'm hoping that they got some competition, especially with Bryce being American as well. So there's not really a change of, hey, Canadian versus American. Let's try to go find an American guy. The only bummer is that he doesn't know your system as well as Bryce, and he isn't, as comfortable in the CFL game. So who knows with the guy like Chase Bryce, though? He is young and he could develop and take that step. So.
All right, we've kind of covered the gamut here. Oh, we should talk about Andrew Pearson too, because I'm a big Andrew Pearson fan. I think he's Mr. Versatility. He's Mr. BC Lion. He kind of reminds me a lot of Angus Reid in some ways.
Yeah, I agree.
But obviously hasn't been a full-time starter, but this guy will do anything you ask him. He's like I said, he's Mr. BC Lion. He's been, I don't think it's his 8th season now, and he's worked his way up into a playing role. He played at center last year. He played at guard last year. He caught a touchdown pass last year. So
he's undrafted free agent as well, and carved out an 8-year career, darn near 10 double-digit career. So really impressive.
Very dedicated to becoming a better player, and he's just a great person too. He showed up at our CFL Fans CFL Fans Fight Cancer event last year at Grey Cup, and spoke to the crowd for a little bit, and was very impressed by everything that he saw there. So he's just a great individual, and couldn't happen to a better guy. I know that he was kind of sitting in the background, but again, he's Mr. BC Lion, right? He's going to let everybody get their money. He's going to see what's left in the pool, and he's going to take it. So just congrats to him. Couldn't be happier for him.
Fabulous guy. Can't say that enough for sure. Brian, before we do get out of here, I do want to mention just one quick thing in terms of maybe some things Lions fan can maybe keep an eye out in terms of maybe what the Lions still have to do for the second, third wave of free agency in terms of what they still have to need. Obviously, we talked about backup quarterback still. I feel like, as we talked about with GP and TJ, but still adding to outside corner and at the halfback position. And then probably likely still, you can never have enough quality depth along the offensive line. And then probably, you could maybe add some competition in there at will. As of now, it looks like Ben Haladic will start at will as a national. So we'll see, but there's still some, some shaking and moving that could be done, as Bob Medilla mentions here with if Boyu's healthy, with Finley emerging as a starter. I fully am on that board. I made a little clip, I believe, before we officially partnered together, Brian, last time I was with CFF, and mentioned, I really feel like this is a strong possibility for the Lions to get both those guys on the field. I think they're two ascending players. And then as well as, Boyu is going into his contract season. So this is a year that you really want to get a look at him. Can you have enough confidence that you have a guy like Jackson Finley for the future? And hey, you can let a guy like Christophe Boyu walk after next year. I say that just because of a guy like Adrian Green with the Lions, right? Where, he was with the BC Lions for, I believe, 3 years, in and out of positions, playing, outside corner, half, started at safety for a season. He ends up going to Calgary in free agency, ends up being tied for leading in the league in interceptions. So it'll be interesting. I want them both on the field. I think it's a very big possibility, especially with both their flexibility in the pass. I know it's in college, but both of them have a ton of familiarity being able to play, whether it is at half or maybe even in that field corner spot. I don't think it would be nickel. I think they'll keep Deontay Williams at nickel. I think he did a fabulous job there. It was just, you felt his presence almost on a weekly basis at nickel. I felt whether it was run fits, bigger hits, and just some of the pass breakups he was able to do as well. I know some people, speaking with some people kind of around the CFL, they felt like at times he was kind of flat-footed and got a little bit taken advantage of it in coverage. But I felt like Williams, for my money, what was noticeable almost on a weekly basis for the Lions.
There's also a chance that, Robert Carter Jr. might return at some point. We wish him the best of luck in the NFL, of course, and I hope that works out for him. But if not, he'd be a great mid-season addition to the Lions secondary. I believe we still own his rights. I don't think he was a free agent, so
correct.
He would come back to the Lions. So yeah, I mean, there's options for the secondary for sure. I think Bolio and Finley, they'll find a way to get both those guys on the field when they're healthy.
And something also to keep an eye on, they did it a little bit last year before Boyu's injury, but they also they started to sprinkle in a little bit of dime look. So dime would kind of essentially, they took off their will linebacker, they bring on Finley to kind of be like that rover linebacker, where you'd maybe see like leave Darnell Sankey in the middle of that defense. You bring it off a guy like Ben Hladek and kind of put out, whether it's Finley, Boyu, whoever in that spot, and kind of could be that guy that is aggressive enough, is big enough to be in the box and involved, or be able to cover in coverage as well.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it. I want to thank everybody for coming in. I'm just looking at our viewership here. I didn't know you could do this. Most of our viewers are on X.
Oh, really? How are you looking at that? Or is it on Twitter?
I can see the live viewers here, and it breaks it down by
on StreamYard.
Yeah, on StreamYard.
I see.
So most of our viewers are on X, a couple on Facebook, and a few on YouTube. Folks, we'd really love for you to start watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the show get out there. If you could do that, head over to YouTube. The links are right here in the middle of the screen for you. youtube.com/@BCLionsDen. Please, please, please go like and subscribe. And leave us a review. Leave us some comments on there. It really helps the channel. Brian Bunka, how you doing, buddy? Watching the whole thing. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for watching. But head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Facebook, you can follow the page, like it. Of course, follow us on Twitter as well. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care what Elon wants us to call it. But yeah, thank you for all the support. 134 people watching right now. Thank you to the BC Lions and Matt Baker for getting us Nathan Rourke tonight. We really appreciate it. And we will be back in, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. We'll see. Free agency starts next week. So
make sure you're following the Lions in on social media platforms. That's where I'm sure Brian will have you guys updated next for when we'll be back. It was exciting, Brian. I know we were both looking forward to this one, and kind of maybe a little pre-show nerves of how it would go. And I think we not to maybe toot our own home, but I think we hit it out of the park. I really enjoyed that conversation with Nathan. I think he did as well. So I'm looking forward to it. As Brian mentioned, like, comment, follow, all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys in a few weeks.
All right. Take care, everybody. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.